Um, I'm just I want to talk a little bit about Jehovah Jireh, because Jesus goes by a lot of different names, and Jehovah Jireh is the God that sees our need before we even know we have a need, and He's made provision for our need, and He's just waiting for our obedience so we can see a manifestation of the things that we need, so we can see the substance of the things that we need. I just want to tell y'all a story about this is before I got healed. And before I rededicated my life to Christ, and He did all the miraculous things He did in my life. One day I was on my way to work. I was driving. I was on my lunch break, and I was at the light, and I saw a police officer. I was in front of the light. He was coming across, straight across, and I saw him, and I said, he's gonna turn around and pull me over. That's what I said in my mind, because I knew he saw me, and I could tell that he profiled me. Like, oh Lord, he gonna pull me over. So I made my right. And sure enough, he turned around and he started driving behind me. Hey, look at this dude. So I was driving. He didn't pull me over. He was running my tag, and like we were just driving for a while. He was just behind me, and by the time we passed Kroger's, he pulled me over. And he said, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, I don't know. I said, maybe it's my back light, because one of my lights was out, and I've had the sheriff of Cobb County pull me over for my back light, and he never, like, he let me go. Like, every person just pulled me over for my back light, always let me go. And when I said, was it my back light? He said, yeah, it was your back light too, but that's not all. He said you didn't stop at that stop sign over there. And I said, what? And I was thinking in my head, I saw you before you saw me, so I made sure I did everything right before I drove off. So he said, you didn't stop at that stop light, that light over there. And I'm thinking to myself, what? And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with him, because whatever. And so he said, where do you live? I told him I live in them houses that was over there. I don't think that made him any more happier. So he said, I'm gonna be right back. He went to his car. He wrote me a ticket for not stopping at that sign, when I knew I stopped at that sign. And then he gave me a written warning. I've never got a written warning for my back light. He gave me a written warning. I couldn't believe it. So I'm so upset. Like, I'm heated. He said, take it easy on those roads. And when what he wrote on the ticket was a lie. He said it was raining. He said it was drizzling, raining, and it was a whole bunch of traffic. There was no cars except for me and him. I was the only car at the light, and he was the only car in front of me. And this is everything he wrote on the ticket. I'm like, this dude is lying. I'm like, I can't believe I'm being put in a situation like this. So I went to work. I'm just upset. I was late for work. I tried to explain it to them. I don't know if they understood, whatever. But just to fast forward, this happened early November, and he scheduled my court case on February 3rd, on the third day of February. I didn't know why he did that, but it was on February 3rd. And now everything happened. My testimony happened. I got healed. Great things were happening in my life. Just to fast forward a little bit in time, after I got healed, I remembered I had this court date case on February 3rd. And you know what I said? I said, you know what? I ain't going to have to pay this ticket. I said, I ain't going to pay it. I said, something's going to happen. I'm not going to have to pay this ticket. I know that for sure. So probably the Sunday before February 3rd, I was in church, and my pastor was preaching, and he was talking about Jesus' first miracle that he ever did. And it was when he went to the wedding, and he went to the wedding on the third day. He went to the wedding, and that's when he did his first miracle. He turned water into wine. And then he just stopped on that point. He was preaching. He just stopped. He said, you know what? He said, it's something about that number 3. He said, it's something about the third day. He said, it's something about I don't know why he did this. He said, it's something about the third day. He said, if you look at everything in the Bible, it happens in threes. He said, Saul, David, Solomon, none of them was glorified or more wealthy than Solomon. He said, if you look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, none of them was named Israel or had that seal of the inheritance like Jacob. The third person, he said, it's something about that number 3. And when he was saying these things, I was like, this is confirmation. I'm not going to pay this ticket. I said, he don't even know what he just did. Like, God just used him in a mighty way. So I got in the car with my mother, and I said, you know what? I said, Mom, I'm not going to have to pay that ticket. I know I'm not going to pay it. Did you hear what he said about the third day? She was like, I heard what he said. I was like, I'm not paying that ticket. So it was approaching the day to go to court, and I told my mom, I said, you know what, I'm not bringing no money. I said, I'm not bringing a dime. I said, I'm not even bringing anything. And she was like, Michael, she said, I know you're zealous and you're trusting God, but she said you need to use wisdom too. She said, make sure. She said, bring a little bit of. She said, bring some money, and say you just know in your head that you trust in God. You got to be wise at the same time. So I said, okay. I said, I'm not going. I'm gonna bring some money, but I was like, I know I'm not gonna pay this ticket. I just know God gonna do something. So I went. I went there. What's up, bro? So I went to the court to whatever, the court place, the courthouse, whatever, and I came before the prosecutor. She said, "How do you plead?" I said, "Not guilty." She said, "What?" I said, "Not guilty." She said, "I take on these cases all the time. 99.999% of the time, they always lose." She said, "If you take on this court case, your fees about what, $100, $200." She said, it's gonna boost up the risk is gonna boost up to about $1,000. You could end up having to pay $1,000 ticket. And she said, you're more than likely gonna lose. I said, I'm telling you, this cop. I said, can I tell you what happened? She said, it doesn't matter. She said, go ahead and tell me what happened, because you're pretty adamant about this not guilty. And I told her everything that happened. She said, wow. She said, that happened to my husband in '86, and he lost that case. I said, '86. I was thinking, like, that's the year I was born. She was like, and I'm telling you, if you take on this case, you're gonna lose. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, I'm willing to take it. I think I was thinking in my head, ain't nobody in here bigger than God. So she said, you know what? She said, I'm gonna give you some time to think about it. Go sit down. Let me go take some more people. I'm gonna give you some time to think about that, to think about what you're doing. So I was sitting there thinking. She gave me the time to think, and I'm sitting there thinking. And then she called me out without saying my name. She said, hey, I'm telling you guys. After she took a few people, she said, I'm telling you, I take on these traffic ticket cases all the time, and I love taking these cases because I always win them. She said, you be making a foolish decision to plead not guilty for it. Then she said, Michael Otaka, step to the stand. So I knew she was calling me out. So she said, how do you plead? I said, not guilty. I said, not guilty. She said, I'm telling you that I take on these cases. If you want to do something this stupid, she said, go ahead and do it. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, man, she's getting me kind of scared. Just when I was about to say not guilty, about to say, maybe I should say guilty. She said, you know what? She said, I don't normally do this. But she said, because you're a young man and I care about you, so I'm going to get one of my lawyers to come over here and talk to you. She said, I normally don't ever do this, but go sit down over there. He gonna come talk to you. So the lawyer came and he talked to me. And he said, I see, so this is your ticket, and I see what's going on. And I said, you know what, sir, this is what I'm telling you what happened. I got treated unfairly. And I said, what do you think don't tell me what you think is the right or the wrong thing to do. Tell me what you think is the righteous thing to do. And he looked at me, he said, he said, I see you, Michael. He said, I'm assuming you're a man of God. You have a small little Bible in your hand. He said, well, let me give you a scenario. He said, it's like you go into into a casino, and you put some money, you put some coins inside the machine, and you win $10,000. She said, now you win this money, and they tell you that instead of taking the $10,000, you can have a chance to go to this other machine and roll 7 sevens, and if you roll 7 sevens, that you'll win $1 million. He said, what would you do? You could either take the $10 million, the $10,000, or the $1 million. He said, that's the situation you in now. He said, you can either take the no low, which won't go on your record, and you'll pay half of what you're supposed to be paying, and you can go on about your business. Or he said, you can try and take it to court, and you're more than likely not going to win because it's your word against them, and the officer will be there. So I was thinking to myself, like, And he said, I'm sure you'll make the right decision. I'm like, man, I started to think, like, man, what's going on right now? Everybody's saying that I would lose this case if I plead not guilty. I don't know what I should do. So I went to the stand, and I'm like, God, are you trying to tell me to do something else or what? Do you want me to just take the NOLO? I don't know what's going on right now. And she asked me, said, what do you plead? And I said, no low. I said, no low. I didn't know what was going on, but that's what I felt. So I said, no low. And I sat down and said, you made the right decision. I'm telling you, you would have lost that if you would have took it to court. So I sat down and I'm a little upset. I'm not even going to lie, I'm not a little upset. I'm upset. I'm like, man, I really had so much faith that I wasn't going to pay this ticket. And I sat down and I'm like, man, I don't know why God wanted me to move in this direction, but whatever. I said, I still have some faith that something can happen. I said, something can still happen. So I was sitting down. It was a girl that was sitting beside me, and there was a guy that was sitting beside her. He looked like he was praying. I don't know what was going on. I really couldn't tell you. It's always small little, when God's doing something really big, the supernatural, it's a lot of small things that go on in the natural. And so I'm sitting there, and we're supposed to go and pay our ticket, and we're just sitting there. We're sitting there for a long time, and we start looking at each other. We're like, what's going on? Like what is going on right now? Because nobody was calling us to come pay our ticket. Then the judge said, everybody on that side, rise to your feet. Everybody's like, okay. So we walked up to the judge's stand, and she started saying, no fine. No fine. This is what's crazy. I was the second person in line. She said, can I take that young lady in front of you before I take you? And I said, sure. And I didn't realize it then, but I was the third person in line. I was the third person in line. Then she said, Michael will take her, no fine. She said, if you want to go see your receipt, she said, go. You can go there. It's not even gonna go on your record. She said, you can go get a copy of it and you can go see it. I was ecstatic. Like as a result of that faith, nobody in there had to pay their ticket. That was sitting on that side with me. Nobody had to pay for their ticket. So I was like, oh my God. I called my mother on the phone, and she was like, oh my goodness, Michael, you didn't pay? I was like, no. She said, God is really trying to make himself show himself to you. I couldn't believe it. Like I was so happy. Like no fine. And I mean, it was just a real boost for my faith. And it kind of reminded me of Paul and Silas when they praised God, and the building started shaking and everything came down. As a result of their faith, everybody's locks was loosened and everybody got let go. And that's just a result of trusting God. He's not only doing it for you, he's doing it for everybody around you. He's trying to show himself as Jehovah Jireh. And that's it. God bless.